We will get started. Thanks so much. Kelly Middleton is our guest today on our Lunch and Hour as we talk customer service. He's a superintendent of Newport schools in Kentucky. Kelly, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Welcome. I'm excited to be here. This is one of my first experiences with something like this, so I hope it goes well.
Well, I'm sure it will, because it's a great topic, and you're an expert at it. Why don't you give us a little background first for those of you who may not be or those people who may not be familiar with you? How just tell a little bit about who you are and really how customer service became your passion.
Well, as I said, my name is Kelly Middleton. I'm superintendent of Newport Independent Schools, and we are right. I can look out my office window and see Riverfront Stadium where the Reds play, or you have the Bengals right across the river there. So very inner city. I've been here 4 years. Just renewed for another 4-year contract if I want to stay. But I also have been at a place called Mason County, which is more of a rural area. And then before that, I was a principal at a middle school. I've been an interim principal at a primary school, which had about 1,000 K through 2 students, and I've also been interim high school. So I've kind of seen it all. I was a teacher many years ago, and wanted to be a really good teacher, but I also wanted to be a type of teacher that the kids gravitated towards. I'd watched. There was always certain teachers that the kids seemed to like and respect both, and really worked towards that. When that's kind of the focus of the second book that we wrote. But as I became a school principal, and I've moved to 2 different districts. Each time the struggle was losing students, bad perception of the school or school district, low test scores. And each time I've left to try to go make improvements as needed. And we've used customer service as actually the means to do this. And I think that's what will come out today. Customer service is not easy. It's a very hard thing. It's a misconception. It's really hard to do. But it can have ramifications for finances, because if you don't lose students, you're going to have more money. It has implications for test scores, because students will work harder for teachers who care about them, for public perception, volunteers into your schools. To me, it's the one thing that covers every aspect of a public school.
It's people, right?
Yes.
It's real. It's what's tangible. It's what people's emotions are going to play into and respond to.
No doubt. And that's in both books, we really talk about the relationships and make sure you make the right choice in hiring and that type of thing. When you look at customer service, and you just stop me anytime, but it's really not doing the articles in the paper or we do school calendars that goes home with every child. Really, we're talking about making a difference for every person who walks through your school district and covering every touch point from the time a student walks to the time they leave, from the time they enter kindergarten, graduation, from the time to who parks cars on the weekends, interacting with people. And that's a pretty big task.
Right. Well, and we'll get into those touch points here first. Chris, quickly, I want to go ahead and put your books up for everybody. The first one, Who Cares? And that's improving public schools through relationships and customer service. And then the other one, Simply the Best, 29 things students say the best teachers do around relationships. And that's so key too. And we're going to go through some of those checklists we sent everybody who's on the webinar today. One of those checklists, and we'll go through that in a second. But I think that when you talk about those touch points, that is something that could really be an exercise for administrators, teachers, any of us throughout the day. So walk us through. Is that what you talk about? Be a kid on the first day, right?
Yes. Let me talk to 2 different big touch point areas. Let's talk about from board to superintendent, superintendent to board, from district office to schools, from school offices, from principal to teacher to custodian. You have that issue there all the way through a system. Mm-hmm. The second piece, which you just mentioned, and coming from poverty myself, it's kind of funny, really. Think about some of your poorest children. You probably want to be nice to all your kids, because you never know who might wake up and be your superintendent someday. And that actually happened, because I was a very poor, grew up in the projects, and actually was able to come back and run a school district from where I went to school. I'm not there now, but anyway. But we changed schools several times when I was little, and let's pretend you just lost your job, and you're going to take 2 children to a new school tomorrow, and your two children probably don't want to change. They probably don't want to change schools. So you've really told them this is going to be a great school as a parent, and you're just hoping. You don't want to move yourself, but you're hoping it's a good day. And let's just say you drive up to the school and there's trash all over the grounds, or there's graffiti somewhere right there as you walk in. And I can give all kind of examples. But then you walk into the school and it's dark and dingy, or you walk into the office and there's an untrained secretary there who's not very good with people, who treats you rudely. And as a caveat to that, a lot of schools probably have their discipline where two kids maybe just been in a fight right there sitting in the front office, or you have the school nurse, and you have head lice, and you have a sickness, and then here you come with your two new children to tell them what a great school this is going to be, and you can go on with all the touch points, because if you walk the child down to their classroom, you can open up a door, and the teacher might say, "Oh, another child. I don't have enough desks for your children." Or just by a body language or a sigh would let the parent and the kids know that you're really not welcome in that school or that classroom. And then the student has to go from class to class. Do you have mechanisms in place so the child doesn't get lost right in the middle of school? Do you have a mechanism in place when they go to the lunchroom and they get their tray? They don't know where to sit down because there's kids at every table and you're a brand new child. Now, most of these things happen to me as I changed schools from time to time back when I was growing up. And you didn't feel comfortable going to any table because, once again, you'd be interrupting 3 or 4 at every table. I would hope that they clean tables in between lunch shifts, but I have found that some don't do that. I have also found cooks using the same rags throughout the very same rags all day, wiping off tables. Seen all types of things, and you hope someone's cleaned the tables. But that's another story. And then you go home, then you finish out your day, and hopefully somebody gets you on the correct bus. As I was placed on the wrong bus one time and was lost. And then again, as a parent, you're sitting there thinking, "Oh, I hope my child had a great day at school," only to come your first day at work at a new job, and you have two kids that are just tremendously upset who want to go back to their former school. And I can tell you, all these things do happen in public schools because they've happened to me. So when I talk about every touch point, that to me is what is important. And I'll give you the opposite of that when you're ready for it.
Go ahead. Give me the opposite for it.
The opposite of that is you walk in, and I mean, it's clean and pristine. It's well lit. Everybody knows where the office is. And the discipline is somewhere else in the building, and the nurse, and you have a trained secretary who seems excited to have new people into their school, and she pulls out a form and helps you fill the forms out. She'll give you maybe a place, if you're brand new, to go get your electric hooked up or your water hooked up, as she already has a form created and actually directions to those places. They call the counselor down to give you a tour of the school. And the counselor takes, as a parent, if you have time, and the new children around to the school and shows them all the great things going on in the school. Up and down the halls, you'll see really nice student work. And then the guidance counselor will find they've put together a little ambassador team of students like your two children or child, and they'll set them up with an ambassador that will go class to class with them if necessary. We'll also eat lunch with them, so they'll have somebody to eat with. And then your child will develop a friend, hopefully on that day, this ambassador will also help them get to their classes and also help get on the correct bus. And then when the child gets home, they're telling the parent, "Oh, what a great day." Now, I forgot to mention, when you walked the new child down to this school and you walked into the classroom, everybody in the classroom stood up and gave your child a standing ovation, and came and clapped and gave them and told them, "Glad to have you in our school." And like I said, then the bus takes them home, get them on the right bus. The bus driver talks to them on the way home, tries to get to know the student, lets the student know a little bit about the bus driver. And even your kid comes home so excited about what a great day they've had in school. They've met friends. The school calls you up and asks how the first day went as a parent, and what kind of day your child had, and what kind of questions do you have. I can also tell you all these things are going on in public schools today. So that's just an example, and that, to me, that's true customer service. That's the touch points we're talking about.
Now, obviously, to implement something like that has to come from the top down. If somebody is listening right now, we're either PR professionals or maybe even the superintendent secretaries. How do you approach this with maybe your administrators to say, hey, here's an example, or here's, what can we do, I guess is the question.
You nailed it, Holly, and that's the big piece of customer service. And in all the customer service research, from J.D. Powers to everything you'll read, from Disney World alone, it has to start at the top. Southwest Airlines, Chick-fil-A. If it doesn't resonate from the top, you cannot do what I'm talking about. And I would hate to be a PR professional where customer service and public relations was not important as superintendent. Now, I'd like to stop to say I think that the PR person is the most important person in the school district, and not just because I'm on this luncheon hour, because I truly believe it's what makes a difference. But it starts with the superintendent, and as a school district, it also starts at a school with the school principal. And if I give it a quick example, we have a McDonald's here pretty close to where I am. I go in the morning to get coffee, and I have the best customer service in the world. I really do. They brag on my tie. They say, "Oh, Mr. Middleton, you look so good today." It's quick. They get me in and out. But if I go to that same McDonald's in the late afternoon or night, there are workers laying around. Nobody will wait on me. It's the worst. And this has happened multiple times. So it always comes down to who's in charge.
Yeah.
Disney will tell you also that thousands of people come every year to see their customer service, but very few can go back and implement it because it takes pretty strong leadership, and it has to be some people that are totally dedicated to what I'm talking about. But for myself, I will lead from my office. I will tell my board to evaluate me on customer service. And every time I tell my board that during interviews, I seem to always get the job because that's pretty important to school board members. They get this because they're out in the real world. And I tell them to evaluate me on customer service. Every employee will respond within 24 to 48 hours of anybody that emails or calls them. We have certain rules like that. Then I'm going to evaluate my school principals on customer service.
Mm-hmm.
They know that I'm going to check on customer service. And I tell you, one of the best ways to check is sometimes you just have to put yourself in the shoes of the customer. And that's a huge customer service concept I like to live by. I have went myself and stood in line for food just like the students do. So I've stood in the cafeteria lines. I want to see how long I had to wait in line. I want to see how the cooks are treating the kids. I've rode every school bus in every district I've been in. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, till you've actually done that, you probably really don't know what it's like to be a student. And that's the whole premise of the second book, was we're asking kids. So it's that type of total commitment from the leadership. There's a quote by J.D. Powers that says, it must flow like a waterfall from the top. And that's if you really want to be good at this, I think that's a key.
Mm-hmm. Now, as PR professionals, we do get a lot of the phone calls. We have to deal with that, whether it's good or bad or whatever. Obviously, it's the bad calls that are a little more difficult.
Yes.
One thing that we talked about real quickly, calling a snow day. So we thought this would be a perfect time to have you on, because we're all dealing a lot up here in the north. We have other people from the north on the line. When you call a snow day, you never make anybody happy. I can't believe you're not having school today. I can't believe you are, and what's your advice for that when it's, the decision was made and it was right. So how do you handle that?
And let me just back up one thing you comment on is I believe training is so important. I think it's something we really leave out of public schools. And I think that's where a PR professional can really help. We have to train all of our staff. And I just want to show this is a brochure here that it's got 29 things that every person that works in any of my offices have to be able to do. We've trained them. We've given it to them in writing. It's on their desk. And there's some really good things for anybody who works in any office. And if somebody Facebooks me, I can make copies and send it to them later. So training is really important. Okay, calling off school. Let's just take the concepts of customer service and calling off school. First of all, I'm not going to win no matter what I do, and that we already know that. But in the second book, we talk about what makes the best adults. And the best adults tell people why. The kids say the best adults tell them why. So I love the use of a one-call system, school messenger system, whichever you use, that actually can go into everybody's home. That's something that we have as a public school that I guarantee even Disney would like to have that one. And here's where I think some people miss it. I don't like using the computer voice. I like for it to be my voice or a live voice anytime that goes into the home. So you'll hear me or the person that I have also trained to do this, because I get out and check the roads myself. we're calling off school, and we give the because on this part of town, this particular road is unsafe for our bus to go up this hill or that hill. Perhaps it didn't get salted. And I'm going to give that reason because many times people live on one part of town don't know what's like on the other because it could hit snow could hit hard one area and not the other. But I really believe the human voice and telling people why makes an unbelievable difference. On the same token, sometimes you mess up because just like in the snow hits about 6 o'clock usually about the time my bus is supposed to go out. So we can make mistakes. And I've known and I've had to do it myself, where you make a mistake, get on the one call and say, listen, I like to apologize today. We should have went to school, or maybe I should have called it off. I like to apologize. I'll try to do better. Makes the biggest difference in the world.
Wow. That's a good one there at the end. And when you talk about mistakes, we kind of talked about that too, because mistakes are going to happen. Yes. And so when you're looking at customer service, recovering from your mistakes is sort of the ultimate in customer service, right? Oh,
Holly, you just nailed it. And that hit both books because the first book was about the businesses, and the second book is really what the kids say the best adults do. The students told us, because it made the 29 list, that the very best adults admit it when they make a mistake. How powerful is that? That came up so much in the research that if I would go back and teach, I truly believe that I would make a mistake on purpose one of the first few days and let everybody know it's okay to make mistakes in my classroom. Same thing with adults. What are you going to say when you just step up and say, hey, I made a mistake? But in public schools, we're so bad about, I guess we're afraid about being sued or whatever, that we just don't do that. I can recall a story where I was coaching basketball my very first year of teaching. As long as you're now going back 29 years, but it really impacted me. I yelled at the referee, and I was trying to get a technical, and the referee ran over to me and said, and says, please don't yell at me like that. I made a mistake. I wish I missed the call. And I didn't know what to say because I wasn't used to referees admitting they made a mistake. And so I think that's a piece of it. So when you do make mistakes, here's where I think the PR professional can come in and be such an important person to the superintendent, to the principals, to staff. Because if you know how to recover well when you make a mistake, you might save jobs. And we've saved several jobs of people just by hitting recovery mode quickly. The very first way I would say, when you mess up, let's say you put a child on the wrong bus. Let's say it could happen. I mean, those things could happen. Mm-hmm. But let's say when someone's mad, I like responded. That's where the 24-hour to 48-hour rule comes in. So first of all, I'll respond quickly. The best way to recover well is to not let it stew, not to let it continue to go. Because the research will tell you if you made a mistake, the longer it takes you to try to recover, the more people are suspicious of why you're doing it in the first place. So when you make a mistake, quickly get into recovery mode. That's my first thing. Secondly, you've got to have empathy. Now, I'll give you an example. As a school principal, when I was filling in at K2 school, we had a child that missed the bus. Parents were unhappy. I knew there was going to be because it was like the second time. So I'm going to take the child home in my personal car myself. Secretary is going to let them know that the principal's bringing him home in his car. And when I get there, I've got the kid who had fallen asleep, luckily, giving me a hug as I hand over to the mother, and I apologize. And we had the best conversation for 30 minutes. But I did tell her I was sorry. So you have to have empathy. So you got to be quick. You have to have empathy. Here's the third one. How do you try to make your recovery equal the offense? Mm-hmm. It's a little more difficult in public schools because we really don't have money to throw at people, but it could be your actions. The action on that last one would have been me driving the student home myself and handing the child over and apologizing. So sometimes you have to, how can I make the recovery equal the offense? But those three things will get you out of trouble almost any time. But it has to be quick. You have to mean it, and then like I said. So I think that goes in public schools. Sometimes these things linger forever because nobody wants to step up and handle it, and it causes problems. Well,
and I think now with social media, it's more important than ever now to handle it quickly. Because how does that throw a whole new wrench in customer service?
Oh my, yeah, we love social media, don't we? Yeah, it's social media has added a whole new piece. But you know what? Cell phones added a whole new piece about 10 years ago, or less. And but how, I guess I would counter with social media. How do you use it to help you? Now, you could be on social media all day, but social media, if you have people out there looking, I'm on Facebook, so if you live in the community, you can friend me. I don't let students, but I let adults. So I usually, or some of my people will let me know that something early. So there's a way to use it to your advantage, because a lot of times I like to hear the whispers before I hear the screams, and you can jump on something. And so use it to your advantage that way. But it does cause problems. We talk to our staff, we train, and I do let students follow me on Twitter, because when I call off school, if you follow me on Twitter, one of the advantages is that I'm gonna kick that out first. So there's certain things I do, but I don't think you need to be afraid of it. It's here to stay. But how can you use it to help you? You might like this, PR professionals. I have all my leaders, principals, cabinet members, curriculum people, all have Facebook and Twitter. And I have them tweet something positive about the school district daily. Now, what we all do then, we retweet it. So we get as many people on there. So we're at least hitting them with positives all the time. So I guess I'm giving you the counter. I'm trying to use it to my advantage, because I've got to deal with it anyway.
Right. Yep. And the more positive you can put out there, hopefully it kind of makes the negative not seem so big. Big too.
Well, Holly, you can go down. You can walk in any of the schools and take a picture of something on the wall of student work and brag on the student and things like that. You can do a lot of things with this, as long as you have permission from the parents to be able to do that. But most parents love seeing their student work on Facebook.
That's very true. We did have a question come in, kind of going back to training your staff. Can you kind of walk through what maybe a conversation would be like with maybe an athletic director or something, or coaches, just to try and get them on board with what
Yes.
you're doing?
Well, and who cares? The reason I think the book did so well is we have a little section there, kind of my expectations for coaches, secretaries, custodians, cooks. I went through that. And then we train all these, and I'm not trying to, I have to do a real job. When I retire, I'll be going around and train those different departments. We make training fun. We make it where, for example, I'm going to have the secretaries in. We're going to feed them. The principal, superintendent's going to stop by. And of course I'm superintendent, but we're going to have the training. We're going to make it fun. They're always nervous about it. We're going to talk about what the best companies do on the front lines. We're going to develop this together and come up with our own expectations. The beauty is that we create it together. Like these 29 things I just shared, this pamphlet, we create that together. So when we do mess up, I can say, this is not what we said we were going to do. The other beauty about training is now once I've trained you, I can hold you accountable. You can really go in, I could go in, whatever, and people just don't know. They don't know what calls to put through, what calls not to put through. In some schools, let me just say, Holly, we're pretty bad. Some schools don't even have live people answering the phone. I'm going to have live trained people answering my phones. And I'm going to have it in the summer also. I just hate the computers answering the phone. It just drives me crazy. I can't get to people in other schools sometimes. So anyway, so the training is going to be fun. We're going to show movie clips of some good and bad examples, commercials, good and bad examples. We're going to talk about why it's good and bad. We're going to role play. And it's really a fun day, and I probably helps myself with my PR with my staff, because they see me in a different light. They see my leaders, and they see it's important. And then we go back, and like I said, it always helps. And then, but I guess the beauty of it, every once in a while, I hear, I got a bad secretary, I got a bad whatever. Well, if you allow that, then that's leadership fault. You haven't trained and you've not held them accountable. Quite frankly, if you couldn't work at Disney World in the front line, you really shouldn't be working in a public school.
It's a good comparison. I think a lot of us would be interested just to see, I like your suggestion of creating your own rules and your own customer service, but I think that your 29 things, if we can get our hands on that would be great.
I'll give it to you. You can do it out there. Yes. I'll give that to you, and you can do with it as you like. I don't play. The thing is, I would say, though, the beauty, that's why I want to say that, is the beauty of it is you create it together. I just want to show you this too, because I want everybody to answer the phone with a smile in their voice. You'll see like a little mirror on this one here that you can actually, it has a reflection. So that's one of the rules. We want to hear a smile in your voice. So
I like that. Very good. One thing too, when you were talking about the mistakes, that training continues, doesn't it? When we see even things in the news, it doesn't happen to our school. You take those back to your admin team, right? And talk about what it would look like.
Yes, ma'am. And that's another good thing I think PR professionals could do, because there's something in the news about every day. Let me just give one example. Since a lot of people know I do this, I get phone calls all the time. But one that seems to keep happening, let's take the cafeteria. A student goes through the line, has their meal, but yet they get to the end of that, they just don't have the money, and they're over their charges. So besides making them eat a peanut butter or cheese sandwich, the school district the cook will take the food off the tray and throw it in the trash can right in front of the kids. And that's happened several times. And so, we're going to go back at my next cabinet meeting, which I have weekly meetings. We're going to bring that up. We're going to say, and I'm going to say something like this. If something like that happens in my district, I'm going to fire somebody. Now I'm superintendent, and PR professionals don't have that ability, but that is just lack of common sense. I told, charge me if something like that happens. But so many times when something goes on in the news, I shake my head. How did it get that far? And these things happen all the time. But anyway, that's an example to me as a PR professional. Let's make sure we're not on the news, because usually when you throw food away in front of students, that usually is going to make the newspaper or the news. So I see lots of those common sense mistakes all the time. Training, and Holly, you made a good point. I will say training never stops. If I would ask, now that we do customer service training, we need to do more. Everybody, we need to do more. And like I said, so if you're Disney, you're at Apple, you're going to be trained for weeks before you're even allowed to step onto the main floor. In public schools, sometimes we just throw people into positions. So we can never have enough training. And for people out there, besides holding people accountable, you could do little things like, once you have the training, have a little salary bump. Like I said, you can make it a very positive experience.
Just a couple of things on your list from the first book, Who Cares, when you're talking who's holding the cards. There were a couple of these that I circled. Number 13 on there, do we have effective transition or jumpstart programs for students? Those transition years are crucial in keeping students, and obviously anxiety-wise for students, that's difficult. What are your programs? What have you put into place?
Well, I'm glad you chose that one. We a lot of people are using our books across the United States because they're losing students. That seems to be one of the things and actually that's kind of why I've been brought into the district I'm in now. 10 years of decline enrollment. In transitional years, there's kind of a 3-step approach that we use here. One's called a move-up day. I really like using one day, the last week of school, and having every student go to their next year's teacher. And I would tell you that every place I've been, that's one of the highest attendance days the entire year, and it's the last week of school. And what we do with that day, we tell teachers, teach something they enjoy, have fun with the kids, get to know the kids, and make it a very positive experience. Now, what you'll usually find when you're losing students, you're going to lose them between the elementary and the middle, or from middle to high the year they go. So we do a district-wide. So we're going to bus the kids from middle to high and that type of thing. We're going to have lunch in the facilities. And that, to me, this is a transitional, when we're talking about transition. I work with a district that had 100,000 students. They called it Sneak a Peek Day. And the other thing we're starting to get now, even maybe some private students or school students, some other students who may want to come to my district, we allow them to come to Move Up Day, and they get to see what the school's like, and kind of almost a recruitment tool. So that's the Move Up Day experience that we do. Now, we tie that in because we're going to find out where you live, because maybe some of your listeners do not know this, but every child in my district will receive a home visit by a teacher before school starts. So during the transitional day, Move Up Day, we're going to find out where the student lives, because I'm going to be the teacher coming to your school, coming to your home in the summer to get to know you and your parents. And we've been doing that. We live in a very poor inner city where crime is big area, and we had 100% of our students receive home visit last year, and I'm very proud of that.
Wow, that's amazing.
And then the first day of school just goes so much better. Yes. Was
that hard to implement? Because I'm sure there's school districts who are like, wow, I can't see that happening here.
Yes, that takes strong. Now it takes leadership, but it takes a good sales job. Now, where I am now, I'm in a very tight bargaining contract. So we started out with a sample group of teachers my first year, and then we had well over half the second. We had about 85% the third year, and then just a couple people who had some sick or illness. We had about 100% participation last year. So it took there. Now, the other district, I didn't have a tight bargaining contract. I was just able to say we're going to do it. But but even then it took a couple years to really get the sales job going. Most of if you have a preschool program, they do home visits already. So you have to talk about but I can tell you just what it looked like in Newport, because like I said, we have a tight bargaining contract, probably ranked one of the highest crime areas in Kentucky. I'm really proud, but we had a local restaurant who got so excited about it that fed every staff member breakfast and lunch that did the home visits. So, and then we all wore the same T-shirts, and then so we had these red Newport shirts all over the community, and then we made the leaders. Of course, when being superintendent, I can do this. Every one of my leaders had to be at all the different areas, and if it was a tougher area, I had more people there. We had water stations set up. We had the transportation area set up. So if you didn't know what bus you was going to ride, it ended up being a day that is a lot of excitement. And once again, you couldn't get all your visits in because most teachers had to do about 24 of them, but they were able to get a majority of theirs in, and then they have to go back and get maybe the others in the summer sometime. We paid $250 for that. I know that somebody's going to want to know that too.
Now, I know when I heard you talk last year, you mentioned how, when you go to speak at a school or in an area, you'll call that school ahead of time and not tell them who you are and do a little investigation. Do you still do that? And what do you find?
Well, I only do that if they want me to do that. And I've kind of stopped doing that, but I've got several on tape that it's funny. I did a session yesterday for 55 principals in Kentucky, and I played one. And everybody just thought it was hilarious. I mean, they wouldn't let me take a tour because they were waxing the floors. I asked where the counselors are, and they said, well, they're like bugs. They run when school's out. I mean, the person actually talked bad about all the people in the building. So it was kind of fun to play that. And I would say, and I hate to, that's kind of an average call. It's amazing that who we let answer our phones in public schools sometimes. Hundreds of calls coming in. I mean, that's so not only do we have untrained people manning the phones, but we put all of our discipline and headlights all in the front office, and then we wonder why we have a bad perception. And one PR professional in the district office can't solve all that, the harm that can do. Yes.
Yeah. And overall, do you think customer service in public schools is improving, or do you still think it's maybe not so good?
I would think it's probably not so good. Even as hard as we hit it here in Newport, or I try to hit as superintendent, I've got to keep training even more than what we do. It's something that they don't really teach you in college and university to be a teacher, or, they just don't teach that. You've got some naturally just good at it with any teaching at all. So I think we got a long way to go. And I think that the fact that homeschool is growing at such a rapid pace, charter school movement continues to grow, vouchers and all the different things, shows you that we've got a long way to go. And I would say this might be our only hope. If I was a young person right now in public schools, I would wonder if it's even going to be here 20 years from now with the way with the way the competition is growing. So we've got to get better, and we have to do it quickly.
And one more thing from your list too. I think this is interesting. Do we communicate with all stakeholders? Does the school inter-district use advisory groups, student councils, which I thought was great to put on that list, or agenda books as communication tools? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yes. From a superintendent standpoint, another great thing a PR person could do for the superintendent needs to be there. I'll say that too. It has to be important. But I have advisory groups that I meet with monthly, and they have different areas. They'll have cooks, custodians, maintenance, and their job is to go back and communicate to the rest of their people. All public relations research talks about how it comes from within an organization. PR comes from within the organization. So you want your people going out of the organization saying good things, clearing up rumors for you. If we're going to take a tax increase, my cooks, custodians, and bus drivers, for example, are going to know why we need the tax increase and be able to explain it, because that's who people go to. There's been some really neat research from the National School PR Association, but usually cooks, custodians, bus drivers, they rank much higher on who people listen to in the community. So those advisory groups there are crucial to a superintendent, I believe. I truly believe that. So, and like I said, we're going to feed them breakfast. We're going to have a good time with them. It's PR for superintendent. We're going to talk. Then they're going to bring me issues at these meetings too that we need to fix. And then you come back to the students. About any time I have a major issue, I go to the students. And my group of students is called Kelly's Kids. I'll get the students in a room, middle school, high, and we'll talk about what's going on in our schools. I usually don't let anybody else into the room because I don't want them to be afraid of getting in trouble for what they say. And I use that as an advisory group. Honestly, they've helped me in big issues from cell phones to school lunches. Usually we don't. And what happens is if the students know, let's go back to why. Why can't we have Pepsi or Coke in the cafeteria? Well, you break out the law and you show them this. Or when they're not really happy about their serving size, then you have to break out, okay, here's some of the new laws in food service. They know the why, but now they'll come up with some ideas too that you can use, and usually that stops all the craziness. Because if kids feel like you're listening to them, they'll give you a break.
And they'll talk to the other kids. Oh, well, the superintendent told me this. I mean, they're good at spreading good information too, yes. Right?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So if I have a major issue, and I've used this now several years, being from school principal to superintendent, any big issue, I like including them. And it's amazing. They can help sell the reasons why things are going on and why it's happening. They can usually shut down if stuff starts to get pretty bad. So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, do you use surveys, both from your staff and community to kind of evaluate how your district is measuring up for customer service?
Oh, I think there's a place for some surveys, Holly. I'm not a survey fan, and I'll give you the. Coming from poverty, I'll give you my what my mama would say when the survey would come home. They'd probably give me a soft drink if I get the survey filled out. My mama's going to look at that and say, I say anything that could be construed as negative, they'll probably take it out on my child. I'm just not going to, I'll say everything's great and send it back to school. Not a huge survey fan. If I'm making some major changes in a school, and I survey my staff at the same time that major change is about ready to occur, I have a feeling the survey is not going to be very good. So I think you really just have to look at it closely. I love using focus groups where you even bring an outside person in, get community members in a room, promise them that nothing will be shared about who said what, and then the outside person will tell you what came out of the meetings. I love that, and that's truly one way to get some good, accurate information. The other way is, once again, it's like I do with the students. I don't let anybody else in the room. The students know. They really do know what's going on. I like that. I'm just not a huge fan of surveys because whether it's good or bad or what they say may depend on the mood at the time. I do also like surveys because it does, like we did a calendar committee survey, and it gave everybody some input. But once again, if it's not the calendar they like, they might say, well, no use me even filling out the survey next time because they didn't do what I want to do. So there's good and bad, but I really like the idea of focus groups, and I love the idea of walking in the shoes and just going and seeing for yourself.
Mm-hmm. What have you, since you wrote your first book and you've traveled around the country now, what do you think you continue to learn about customer service, or have any of your thoughts changed, or
No, I think it just reinforced the importance of it when you go. I take pictures of signs up. I won't tell a district I was in not too long ago, but they were going to, if I parked in this one parking spot, I was going to be towed and I had to do community service. And I thought, wow, boy, that's pretty. I wonder who enforced that one. It's funny to see some of the signage up, and I would think too, if you've been in a district a while, you might not look at things. You walk past things maybe you haven't noticed. But it's funny, I'll take pictures of dead trees, terrible signage, terrible misspelled words on marquees and things like that. But I'm thinking some people maybe, because they walk past every day, just don't see it. I guess thinking that, it just reinforces what I already know. And we wrote Who Cares, the very first chapter. We saw an unbelievable increase in the competition from charters to homeschool, and all of those have just went up since we wrote it. So it's kind of scary. I guess the one thing, you kind of get a little more nervous if we don't jump on this quickly.
And why do you think people don't put that as a priority? I mean, why do you think customer service is bad?
Holly, when you look at the research in a book called Good to Great and some of that from Jim Collins, and you see the companies that just go out of business, and who cares? I referenced Montgomery Ward's First Dry Good Mail Order Catalog. They had it all. They really didn't even have competition. They made no changes as they saw Sears and Kmart and people like that entering the thing. And then, and one of the things on one of the last days of they were open, they fired like 22,000 people. And the number one comment I think was made was, we had no idea Montgomery Ward's was even in trouble. There's a lot of people who just think that public schools are here no matter what and you're going to last forever. And it cannot be touched. And I think when you look at the companies that went out of business, look at GM. General Motors their profit share went down 20 years in a row, as if they didn't even see Toyota coming. It's amazing. Sometimes I think the longer some of these places have been in business, the more that their staff and people feel like they're bulletproof. The post office had a scare with there for a while, and still they're still millions are in debt. So I think you're never safe. That's kind of an attitude you have to have. I think the reason public schools, we've been here an awful long time. 10 years, 20 years ago, you didn't know anybody was homeschooled. Now you know where the homeschools. There's lots of homeschool students. So I think that's that attitude that we cannot be touched. I'm a teacher. I've got tenure. My retirement's guaranteed. And what we're finding out, some of those guarantees really are not there. And if we don't, and so I think that's that attitude. The longer you've been in business, sometimes the more you just think you're bulletproof and nothing can happen to you.
We just have a couple minutes left here. So, as we look at, takeaway, what's actionable on our part, what would be the first step in creating a better or a more customer service friendly environment?
I lost your sound there. Can you hear me, Holly?
Yep, I did. Here, let me repeat that for you. What would be the first step, in your opinion, for us if we want to create a customer service friendly environment? What's the first step? What's the one thing that we can do?
Well, let's assume that the superintendent thinks it's important and the school principal thinks it's important. Okay, because I think we came up with 12 things we thought the best companies do. And I think you have to model it. I think that the leadership has to model it. It has to be important to them. And okay, so let's give you an example. How can you model customer service, for example, and say, we're going to treat people with respect, and you have a school board and a superintendent that fight openly in a board meeting with the newspaper right there. You've already broken 2 or 3 rules of the customer service piece. You don't ever fight out in the public. You keep backstage, and you don't do that. So if you're doing all that, this is going to be hard anyway. But I would think you start out with hiring and train. Southwest Airlines says you hire attitude and train skills. So you've got to hire people with great attitudes, and you got to build customer service into the hiring process, from when you bring people in the interview to looking for people who can give you great service. One quote I like to use sometimes is, even good training won't help a bad hire. Okay? So train is those 2 things. But you might even want to first start, let's name all the touch points we have in our school district. What are all the touch points? From parking cars to renting your facilities at night to from all the offices to the school buses. Let's name every touch point. Let's evaluate those touch points. And then let's talk about what customer service truly looks like, from the board to superintendent to board, from a superintendent to the principals at each school, from principals to the superintendent, go on down from principal to teacher, principals to cook, staff, and then on down, and then teachers to children, excuse me. And then let's really look at that. I'll give you so if you look at those 2 things, I would, some of the things I'm talking about there, that would be a great start. Naming all of our touch points, and let's say what it looks like all through an organization. And once again, and then, like I said, that's where I would start.
Well, and that too is just putting yourself too in other people's shoes, and you're getting that. That's such a huge part of it.
Well, when you walk, putting yourself in other people's shoes, when you get on that bus and you have to wait for 45 minutes to go home, and you're not allowed to wear shorts and it's really hot, you say, maybe shorts be okay to wear to school. Or and I just threw that one out. Or here's one, as a teacher, and they punish all the kids in the classroom because one student messes up. So you do group punishment. If you think that's a good idea, try doing that with all the teachers. So one good rule is, if you wouldn't do it to a teacher, we probably shouldn't allow it to be done to a child. And I think as a leader, that's a key piece. Once again, if I'm going to take a child's cell phone because it happened to go off while he's walking up and down the hallway, then if a teacher's cell phone goes off in the middle of a faculty meeting, we need to grab the cell phone, tell them they can get it back next week. Now, neither is good, I would say that, but sometimes we treat others better than we treat our very own customers, which are the students. And I truly believe the child's a student. So our students need to at least be treated as well as everybody else.
And that is a great point to end with. It's 1:00. Kelly Middleton, the superintendent of Newport Schools in Kentucky. Thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
I had a great time. Let me know if I can help in any other way.
All right, will do. And everybody, thanks for tuning in today. We'll get you that 29 customer service list from Kelly, and we'll see you on the next luncheon hour. Have a great day.